Happy Sunday, everybody, and welcome to another Arkansas football recruiting report. As always, that's Otis Kirk. I'm Jacob Morris. Otis, somehow, some way, it seems like we are knocking on the door of spring football. We've already made it there, and before we know it, the season will be here. But we've got some recruiting to talk about, spring football, portal to talk about as well. But we start with a little bit of recruiting news and a tight end on the tight end front. Javion Martin, a guy out of Texas, 4-star recruit. A lot of interest from a bunch of different places, some of the Texas schools, North Texas, Texas Tech, but obviously a guy that Arkansas would like to add to the tight end room, and he's a 2026 guy out of Pflugerville.
Yeah, I actually did a story on him at the football camp last summer. He came to one of the camps. I don't remember which one. It's just one of the many camps they had. But I was impressed with him. At the time, he didn't have an Arkansas offer, but he does now. And he's going to visit June the 13th for an official visit. He's also got official visits set to Arizona and Houston. He's got 20 offers, so he's got a bunch of offers, and he's a good player. 6'4", 6'5", 250. I mean, he was a good-looking tight end. He was just coming out of his sophomore year when I saw him, Jacob. And this year, he went on to have 51 catches, 804 yards, and 11 touchdowns. A little spot duty on defense, 8 tackles, a sack. Didn't play much defense, just spot play. And but he's a very good tight end. Morgan Turner likes him, obviously, because he offered him a scholarship. But I was really impressed with the kid. And at that time, he didn't have that many offers. But obviously, he blew up his junior year. But when anyone looks at him, they can see why. Because, like I said, he's 6'4", 6'5", and 250 pounds. I mean, he's perfect size for a tight end. He's got really good speed. Great hands. He caught everything. I watched him that day, and he caught everything that they threw to him over there. And some of the quarterbacks, at a football camp, you don't have college level quarterbacks. You've got a little bit of wide variety. You got everyone. You also have a Kane Archer or somebody like that, but you also have some kids that probably are not going to be high school quarterbacks, much less college quarterback. And so he had to make some circus catches, and he made them all. And he's a good player. I like Arkansas's chances. He was here yesterday, by the way, for Junior Day, Prospect Day, whatever you want to call it. I call it Prospect Days because when it first started, it was always juniors. Now it's a wide variety, freshmen, sophomores, 8th graders, whatever. But yeah, he was here yesterday for a visit. He'll be back, like I said, June the 13th. The first visit goes to Arizona, and then Houston gets the last one as of right now. Obviously, he could take more than 3 visits, and he may very well do that. But I feel pretty good about Arkansas's chances there. If they can get him, that would be a big boost to their recruiting class at tight end. But he's from Pflugerville, Texas, and like I said, I saw him at the camp before he blew up, and I was really blown away by him. And so, perhaps he's getting all these offers. It makes me feel good about evaluation because I thought he was really good, and he obviously is. And but the offers started pouring in. It's like a lot of kids. Once the first offer comes, the second offer, then they just start pouring in. Because at first, nobody offers. They think, well, what, am I seeing somebody else like? Nobody else offered. Then when they offer, all the college coaches say, "Oh, he offered. I got to offer." That's kind of the way it works. And they don't trust herself as much as they do the other guys when everybody else starts. But Morgan Turner liked him obviously and gave him an offer. And we'll see. But I do, like I said, I feel good about Arkansas' chances there. That can change. This is what, March? And that's April. I mean, that's June. So we got April, May, and to come before he gets here. So a lot of things can change between now and then. But right now, I feel pretty good about Arkansas' chances, Jacob.
Yeah, 2026 kid would be nice to add to the tight end room there. And again, just another guy when you look down, like I was saying, you look down all the offer list, right? Just a bunch of different spots or a bunch of different schools that are interested in him. Yeah, and that's the same sort of deal with the next guy we're going to talk about, Lawrence Britt, a 2027 athlete out of Memphis. And you look down his offer list, and Otis, it is vast for a 2027 guy. Florida State, Ole Miss, Tennessee, all the above. The Hogs offer him on Saturday in 2027, but definitely a priority target for the Hogs.
Mississippi State, Vandy, Missouri,
the whole SEC, UNLV, essentially.
And the schools you mentioned at USC, the list just goes on and on. And he's from Memphis, one of the high schools over there, Lasana Collegiate School. But here's kind of what fascinates me with him, though, Jacob. He's 6'2", 180, a 2027 kid, but he's rated a 4-star with Rivals as a wide receiver. But some people like him as a linebacker. And so mostly he's rated. Rivals has him a 4-star athlete. I mean, I'm sorry, 4-star wide receiver. Other schools have him rated as an athlete. So I don't know if he'll play wide receiver. Will he play linebacker? Heck, he can play safety. He's very versatile, and that's what I like about him, because you try to get him, you land him, and then you worry about where you'll play him when you get him. And but he's very versatile, and and people make 180 a linebacker. Well, he's just the 10th grade. So I mean, he's got some time to grow, and he will grow. He's got the 6'2" height. So he's got some time and ability to grow, and he will do that. So he'll be fine. And I like him a lot, and we'll see where he ends up. I don't have a feel right now. It's too early, But the fact Arkansas offered him and got in the mix, they've had pretty good success recruiting. Memphis is offered too, by the way.
Yeah,
I don't think I mentioned them, but obviously they're going to offer. Vandy, that's pretty close to him. Tennessee, all the in-state schools have offered him, or the main three: Memphis, Vandy, and Tennessee, and Ole Miss is right there. So a lot of schools closer to him than Arkansas, but Arkansas recruited Memphis pretty well. The only kid that went to the combine that was from high school was Eric Gregory from Memphis. The rest of them were Portland kids that came to Arkansas, but through the portal. And so Eric stayed several years, went to high school, and went to the NFL scouting combine. So, Arkansas's had some success there. We'll see it, but it's too early to have a feel for this kid, but I know Arkansas definitely is in the mix for him.
Yeah, definitely a guy that Arkansas would like to have. And again, I know I always say that, but when you open the recruiting pages and you're looking into, man, what does this guy look like as a prospect? And you start seeing some of those names, you got to be in those battles if you want those types of athletes. But Memphis, definitely an area that Arkansas would like to continue to recruit. Let's switch gears a little bit. Nature of college football, right? It's spring. We're talking about high school recruiting. We also got to think about the portal with that next portal window coming up. Sam Pittman talked about where Arkansas was looking, what they might need in that next window, a shorter portal window opening up in a little bit. What is, from your view, Arkansas need in terms of spots to fill, just depth pieces overall? Where does Arkansas need to attack in this spring transfer portal window coming up?
On here, I've been saying one more wide receiver, defensive backs, and defensive tackles, and he left out the receiver. In fact, Sam made it sound like they weren't going to sign one. I know earlier they had intended to sign one more if they could get a difference maker in the spring. And maybe they feel like with what they've got, they've seen enough of them to feel like they don't need to do that. Yeah. But the other part I was spot on with the defensive tackle and the defensive backs. That's where they're going to target in the spring the spring window. The portal opens up in April, and that's what they're April 15th, and that's what they're going to look for is defensive tackles and defensive backs. And Sam, and we asked Sam, or would it be safety or corner? He said both. It doesn't matter, even the hog position, And they signed 4 or 5 defensive backs in their early portal period that are enrolled over there, counting Davila as a junior college guy. It was nice. He mentioned Kenai Walker as one of the leaders and Caleb Wooden. And that doesn't surprise me, because when I interviewed Caleb and Kenai when they were on their official visits, those were 2 of the most personal guys in the world, It did surprise me a little bit. He mentioned Cam Shanks as a leader, because Cam was one that you couldn't hear what he was saying. He said what he had to say, real polite, but he didn't say. I'm surprised he mentioned him as a leader, but I know he's a good player. But I was just a little surprised when Sam said that was one of the leaders, because he didn't really show that in recruiting. But Kenai and Caleb Wooden did. Kenai's from OU, Wooden from Auburn, so they both got SEC ties, obviously, Jacob, and they're going to be. Kenai's a corner, and Caleb's a safety. But and going with that, we've even got the first guy that we know they've offered in the spring from the portal, and that's North Alabama's defensive back. Surprise, surprise, Ashad Williams, 6'2", 178 pounds. And we're talking about offers. There's a kid that's got New Mexico, Western Kentucky, Ole Miss, Kansas, UTEP, Hogs, and he had 22 tackles. 15 of them were solo this year. 3.5 were lost, 5 pass breakups, a forced fumble, and a quarterback hurry. When they played UCA from Conway, he set some personal highs. He had 7 tackles in that game, tackle for loss, a quarterback hurry, and a pass breakup in that game. That was his best game at Northern Alabama. And so he showed out there against them. But Arkansas offered him. They're going to try to obviously they want to get him on campus, for an official visit. He's a grad transfer, so he could enter the portal early. And but he's somebody they really like, and to offer that quickly. And like I said, Ole Miss also offered him. And people may look at Northern Alabama, but just remember they can't take SEC kids in the
Mm-hmm.
second portal window. They have to take kids outside, outside the SEC. And it's something we've talked about on here. I noticed there wasn't very many kids that were non-Power 5 schools that were at the combine, and there was like only a handful. And they said that's going to be pretty much the case going forward, is because all those kids that used to go to the combine from these small schools like Northern Alabama, they're now transferring to bigger
Yeah.
schools. Andrew Armstrong, he
Mhm.
wasn't from Texas A&M Commerce, he was from Arkansas. Ike Tesla wasn't from Hillsdale. That's what I'm getting at, and that's going to kind of be the common theme going forward. They expect that to be the case. Fewer and fewer kids from those schools. So, on draft night, you won't hear as many, schools like that where you kind of scratch your head and say, how did he get overlooked?
Mhm.
Because now they're, it's almost like you wish they could send a finder's fee to these colleges. The big schools have to send a finder's fee because what they're doing, they're finding them, and then the big schools are coming in taking them over. So and taking them away from them. It's kind of a sad situation for them. You feel bad,
Yeah.
because like Southern, man, you feel bad because, like I said, Arkansas played Cam Shank's school, and then all those great players at that school, are going elsewhere. The safety went to Georgia. The offensive lineman went to Ole Miss,
Mm-hmm.
and Shanks came here. All three of those kids visited Arkansas. And so they kind of got hit hard. UAB did there with that happening to them, but it's not going to change going forward. It's just not going to change. So I guess you find them and you just hope you can keep them. A few of those kids stay at their schools, but for the most part. But anyway, Ashad Williams is a kid that Arkansas is trying to get, and it'll be the first of many defensive backs we hear the names of. Going forward, it'll be interesting to see on the defensive tackle, because there's not as many of those out there. And when a defensive tackle enters the portal, everybody goes after them,
Yeah.
Jacob, because they
Yes.
don't grow on trees. Defensive backs, and wide receivers, pretty much they grow on. I mean, I'm not gonna say they grow on trees, but I mean they're pretty abundant, But defensive tackles, guys got true size to play in the SEC. Man, those guys are not in abundance. And when one does go in the portal, it's got all the things that the Arkansas, the Alabama, the Missouri, the Ole Miss, OU, Texas look for. Everybody goes after them, and so it's pretty tough competition there. But Deke Adams is a very good recruiter, and we'll see how he lands there. They got Kiwi Rose a couple of years ago out of the portal in this late period, and they've gotten others. So the kid from BYU last year. So we'll see how they end up, but they'll get some more players from the portal, and but it looks like it's going to be pretty much defense. I guess
Mm-hmm.
I talked about a wide receiver, but Sam didn't seem to think that was it. But they did sign 5 from the portal, and then several high school receivers. And then you still got C.J. Brown, you've got Shamar Easter, you've got Jordan Anthony, you got some kids coming back that were here, so they're pretty good on numbers there, and they've got others coming back. But it'll be fun. And spring practice starts tomorrow. I still don't have a time for the practice. I don't know if you do or not.
No.
But I have not heard a time, but I do know it starts tomorrow, and there'll be 6 practices, Jacob, before spring break, and the spring game is on April the 19th. And I found it interesting because I'd been asked if they were going to have a spring game, because the trend is around the nation is no. And I had said, I think it's a thing of the past, but it turns out Sam said he had never considered not holding a spring game. I actually wrote a story about that. So pretty interesting there that, and look, I love those things. So I'm glad he kept the spring game, because I love watching the spring game. I really do. But I was afraid that it was going to be a thing of the past, like a lot of schools, but not at Arkansas. And I appreciate Sam having that game. I've talked to a lot of fans that said they really enjoy that, and so I think it's a chance. It's a chance for fans to come up here, watch Arkansas, see how they operate. See a lot of these new players, like 30 or 40 new players out there that these guys, the average fan, probably doesn't know that much about, and so they're going to get to see them in a game situation, and hey, we talk about Taylor Green, but Jacob, it's going to be interesting to see who the backup is.
Yeah.
That's going to be a good fight. You got KJ Jackson, you got Madden, and you got Grayson. You got a redshirt freshman and then two true freshmen. And, of course, you have Blake Boda. So, it's going to be interesting to see who gets that backup job. You got, and the thing of it is, you've got Taylor, but what if he gets hurt? They don't beat Tennessee without Malachi Singleton and Braylon Russell. When Taylor and Jaquindon got hurt, you don't win that game without those two guys. So backup quarterback's only one injury away from being in there and being the player. And that's why a couple of people didn't understand why I put Grayson and Madden in my 5 impact freshmen, because you're one player away from possibly being in there. Now, KJ Jackson has something to say about that. But I just know with a running quarterback, it's always possible to get the guy hurt. It's possible whether he's a running quarterback or not. But when you got a kid that runs the ball as much as Taylor, there's always a chance he could get hurt. And hopefully he doesn't. And because he's head and shoulders above everybody else. But by then maybe they'll have some. If he does get hurt, maybe one of these guys will have enough experience and more. And every day they practice, they get better and better under Bobby Petrino. So hopefully that gets settled, and it'll be interesting to see who that number 2 quarterback is.
That's always the interesting thing with spring as well, is you get to kind of look behind the curtain at these position battles where, we have an idea of where we think things might go with the quarterback position, or we talked a lot about in the winter. Heck, there's so many DBs in here. Who is going to be on the field, right? So you get a look behind the curtain at that new wide receiver group as well. And I do agree on the spring game point. It's just kind of a casualty of where college football is at this point. You can't blame coaches for viewing it that way. But, I'm sure you're the same way. I think a lot of fans have really fond memories, really enjoy that whole experience of it's getting the family out, experiencing, not obviously a full game day, but going through all that, and kind of meant, at least for me growing up, I was like, oh, spring's here, right? When you had that opportunity to go out to campus and experience all that. And, it's a good way for families to come back to campus and all that. And I know coaches are experimenting with different ways to go about it, not necessarily playing a game. But, I like the fact that Sam's still doing it. And I know some people are saying it's dumb or whatever it might be. But it was interesting how he just said, I didn't think of doing anything else, and regardless, the Razorbacks are going to play that game on the 19th. And, it's always interesting the way they go about it format-wise. It's obviously not fully contact and all the above, but the Razorbacks will have that game, and I'm glad that they're playing that, and the fans will have the opportunity to come see that in Razorback Stadium.
Yeah, I know he wants to get continuity, but I tell you what, I would love to see, and I think it would get more interest if they would during the old days, they would choose sides.
Yeah.
And it cut down on people working with others they haven't worked with. But I don't remember the coach, but I remember years and years ago, they would choose sides. The winning team got to eat steak. The losing team got to eat beans,
They did that last year a little bit. You remember that? It was that big breakfast or something like that for the winners. And
breakfast. You're right. They did do that. I forgot about that. But yeah, I don't know. I think if you, and I get why you don't do that, because you're cutting down on, you got quarterbacks working with guys they probably haven't worked with all spring, but still, it's kind of fun. But anyway, whatever. Yeah. And one thing that I do know about the spring game, it's been a good recruiting tool for Sam. They usually get a commitment or two on that day. And so if you're if the recruits like it and commit on that day, then you've done something right. And so I think I love it. I'm proud they're doing it. Honestly, I was afraid they would. Well, I figured they wouldn't do it. I wasn't afraid. If they didn't do it, they didn't do it. But I really am glad that Sam's doing that. And I hope they keep that for as long as he's here and they do that. But if they don't, and like you said, I understand why coaches are getting away from it. I do understand that aspect of it. But I like it. And I hope as long as they can, they keep it going on, regardless of the format Sam uses. If it's 1 versus 2s, then that's fine. If that's what he wants to do. But I'm glad that they're having spring game one more. At least one more time, we're going to see a spring game.
Yeah, well, spring practice right around the corner. More than right around the corner. We'll be here tomorrow for the Hogs, and we'll begin to get a look at what this Razorback team looks like ahead of the spring portal window as well. But that's going to do it for this week's Arkansas Football Recruiting Report. That's Otis Kirk. I'm Jacob Morris. We'll talk to you next Sunday.